Well, welcome YouTube friends and family to today's edition of The Wellness Homesteader. Now I know I promised that I would not be doing crafts every single day, but I've had an extremely busy week, and because I was working on a craft, I decided to film it. And so today's video is how to create some really cute decor out of a not so cute Dollar Tree item. So this craft only cost me $6 and I think it turned out beautifully. So stay tuned. I actually worked on this project over several days, but what I started with is 3 Dollar Tree pumpkins, some paint, a hot glue gun, some wire, some scrapbook paper in various colors, as well as some different ribbons that you will see later in the video. So the first thing I decided to do was take off the Grateful, Thankful, and Blessed little metal pieces because I actually wanted to change up the pumpkins. So I just used a putty knife, and some of them came off easy, some of them not so easy, but it really was not stressful at all to get those off. Then I took just some plain acrylic paint, and you'll see I'm going around the edges of the pumpkin, and I also do the sides, if you will, where the particle board shows, because I wanted each pumpkin to look a little more high-end and finished. I decided to leave on the little jute hangers because I really wasn't sure what exactly I was going to do. So once that paint dried, I took my glue gun and I began to draw a line first around the circumference of the pumpkin, and then you'll see in a moment I actually go over the lines of the pumpkin. And this doesn't need to be perfect. In fact, I think the more lumpy, bumpy, and variegated, if you will, the more rustic and cute your pumpkin is going to look. So when you see me twist the glue gun, I'm simply getting rid of the strings. And yes, I've gone back to my high temp glue gun simply because it seems to work better than the low temp glue gun, and it's also the full sticks. So on a project like this where you're using a lot of glue, it makes sense not to use the mini glue gun. I also wanted the fatter glue lines. Once I finished, I traced around the pumpkin and actually cut out a piece of scrapbook paper. And this one is like a distressed beige color. And I am going to begin applying Mod Podge, just using a foam brush here, to about the first half the pumpkin so that I can start laying down that paper. Sometimes I forget I'm filming, guys, and I start getting really picky and into it. So I apologize when you see me fiddling and futzing, but that's part of crafting in my world anyway. So once I have enough of the glue down, I'm going to pick up that piece of scrapbook paper, and I am going to take a tool set that's actually from my Cricut, and I want this little pointy thing, which I'm not even sure what it's called, and I pulled out the scraper, but I actually did not use that. The paper that I'm using is a thin paper. It is not a cardstock, and I found that the pointed tool was sufficient to get it adhered, and I was afraid the scraper would actually make a hole. If you're using a thicker paper, you could probably use the scraper. So now what I'm doing is I am just going along the edge of where that hot glue was put down, and I did let that fully dry, of course, before I started this process. And one thing I noticed right away is you have to get plenty of Mod Podge at the edge of the project. The paper will have a tendency to separate, and even though we're going to coat it when I finish here, you do want to make sure your paper is firmly down so it doesn't curl up. Okay, I'm showing you here my finished, dried first coat of Mod Podge. And now I'm just going to take some Tim Holtz Distress ink. I believe it's either walnut or vintage photo. And I'm just going around the edges to make it look even more worn, distressed, variegated. And I just love the look that this gave. Now you can see some wrinkles in my paper. That is very common with Mod Podge, and even though I let it fully dry, I did end up with a few wrinkles simply because we're laying flat paper over a curved surface. So you could use even paint to do this with. I just decided to use the Distress ink because I am a paper crafter and it does suit me for that rustic country look. And by the way, I did get part of this idea for the glue and adding the scrapbook paper from Country Charm by Tracy. Now I took some burlap. I just cut that 6-inch wide down. And again, you'll see I have those pink fingers on. Those are just silicone protective fingers. And I am going to start adding some hot glue. I try when I'm gluing burlap because it will seep through to keep that glue on the back of the project so you don't have to deal with globs of glue showing. So I'm just wrapping it around a few times and then I will continue to glue. Now, one thing about cutting the burlap, I did end up with a lot of strings. I just cut those away, but they actually look very rustic and cute, so I debated on leaving them. But because there was a lot more to this project to come, I decided to cut them away. And more glue. So you could actually use twine to do this. You could use another piece of scrapbook paper, whatever suits you. Now I decided I'm going to paint those silver words because I wanted them all black. And guys, let me tell you, it was kind of like the worms in the book project. This was an absolute nightmare. So I started out using a milk paint. That did not work. And what I ended up having to do, I tried acrylic, it also would not stick. I actually took it outdoors and I spray painted it. And the only black paint I happened to have was high temp grill paint, but it worked beautifully. So now that we have our paper down and it's dry, I am going to go ahead and add that second coat of Mod Podge. And again, I really tried to pay attention to the edges. And just another tip, because those glue ridges make that Mod Podge have a tendency to pool or puddle, you may have to go over it several times. I have completed all 3 pumpkins, and then I decided to work on the wood that I'm going to be using to hold them together. So I actually am using 5-gallon paint sticks. You can buy a pack of 3 of them from Walmart. I actually only used 2, and I bought 2 packs because I wasn't sure how I'm going to do that. And because I had the Tim Holtz Distress ink out, I thought, why not just use this? I wasn't sure where I was going to place the finished piece, and I was afraid to paint it off-white because my doors are white and I didn't want it to look dingy or off color. So I thought, well, let's just color it wood color. So I did use both vintage photo, and I'm just showing you the difference here. And I also used some green color, some very, very dark green. And I went around the edges just like you're distressing the edge of a piece of paper if you're into paper crafts, but I also rubbed it over the entire stick. Now you see me back at the letters again. So even though they were spray painted with high temp paint, I did have a couple places where the paint did not adhere well. So I just took some black acrylic paint and I touched up all 3 words. And also the paint that I originally used was a flat paint color, and I couldn't just touch this up with acrylic in the spots that it needed because this is a glossy paint. So I actually love the way it came out, and the words really stand out. And if you're like me and you're impatient, you can speed your drying process either with a heat gun or a blow dryer. I will often use my little heat sealing gun that I use for my soap wrapping to dry things like this. So I did a very, very thin coat on each of the 3 words. Now came the challenge of trying to glue it down. So the first mistake I made was I tried to put hot glue on the whole word, and it simply got cold before I could get the word down, and it was far easier to just kind of glue it a letter at a time. And since you now have those glue ridges, this word is not going to lie precisely flat, but it's flexible enough that it wasn't a problem. I also placed the thankful very near the bottom of the pumpkin rather than straight in the middle because I planned to add some ribbon and other embellishments, and I wanted the word to be fully visible. Now I'm ready to start ribboning the project, and I chose a burlap, a plaid, a very sheer leaf, and then this super cute burlap that has little candy corns on it. And I'm just folding the ribbons in half so that I can make a cute pointed tail on each one of them. All the ribbons came from Dollar Tree except for the burlap candy corn, which I purchased from Hobby Lobby. I did get it this season, so I think it is still available. It was very reasonably priced, and of course their fall items are now 40% off. So I had a decision to make whether I wanted to show the orange side of that sheer or the silver, and I chose the silver because I thought it took away too much from the pumpkins and was a little bit too busy with the orange and the plaid. Now I'm just taking I call them a pipe cleaner, but the technical term now is chenille stem. I'm just finding the middle, and I just take that pipe cleaner and bunch it up. You could staple this in the middle if you would like, but I had no problem, and I did purchase those pipe cleaners from Walmart. I could not find any at Dollar Tree. So the first 2 ribbons are going to lie flat, and the plaid, which is really the showpiece, I am going to make a very simple bow. And then I realized, whoops, I forgot to point the ends. So I'm just snipping that away. And I've seen a lot of crafters who will take a lighter and sort of singe the ends to seal it and prevent it from raveling. I'm afraid my whole project would go up in flames, so I am not willing to give that a try. I do have some fabric glue that I can paint on the ends if they start to ravel. So I'm just making 2 loops, 2 tails, and you'll see me twisting here so that there was a right and wrong side to this beautiful plaid, and it had a little bit of a metallic gold going through it as well. This was a wired ribbon, so it was really easy to make the bunny ears, if you will. And I did end up having to cut the tails because it interfered with seeing the word. I started by just pleating it, but it was still too long, and so I just trimmed it off. And then the final piece I'm going to do here is the plain burlap ribbon from Dollar Tree. I love their wired burlap ribbon. For $1, you get 9 feet. I was able to do the entire wreath with that one roll, shall we say, of the ribbon with a bit left over. And I'm just fiddling as you always see me do. I'm almost out of screen. I apologize, guys. I'm learning. And
each time I add a ribbon, I'm just twisting that chenille stem or pipe cleaner around tightly, and then I took it to the back at the very end, and I'm just fluffing it. But it did turn out to be a beautiful bow. Now that I have everything glued together, I found it was much easier to place those ribbons on by hanging it and then twisting those chenille stems around. And one thing I do like about this is it's completely able to be disassembled, and if I want to use it next year in a little bit different way, I'm not committed forever because I did not hot glue the bow. And I went to get my scissors because y'all know I never have everything ready, and I'm just shortening up the tail of that plaid ribbon. I tried raffia on it and I did not like the look. I thought it was much better, a little simpler. And here is the final beautiful door hanging. It's not exactly a wreath, but I absolutely love this. For $6, it is gorgeous.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's craft video. I am just in love with this 3-tier pumpkin, and I'm going to hang it on the front door, I think. But for now, it's enjoying its space on the pantry. If you haven't already, I'd greatly appreciate it if you'd go ahead and hit that like button. And if you're not subscribed, I'd love to have you as part of the channel. Hit that subscribe button and then ring the bell to be notified of all the new videos. And don't forget, drop me a comment below. Where are you with your fall decorating? Are you doing any crafts this year? Have you recreated any of the things that I've shared? And as always, be healthy, be well, be blessed, and I will see you all very soon. Take care.